Before we get going with this video, I'm going to put this clip here because I think it's very apt to the situation that's happening.
Here's a reminder that the worst and most powerful people in the world really only have one trick. They say, there's a monster out there, and unless you do exactly what we say, without question, the monster will get you. If you criticize us in any way, if you question any of our actions or tactics, that must mean you're on the monster's side. If you ask too many questions about the monster, if you seek information about the monster or read books about the monster, that must mean you secretly love the monster. If you truly wanted to fight the monster, you would be as ignorant about it as possible. If this makes you uncomfortable, don't worry, we're going to give you something in return. You now have our permission to be as nasty and petty and horrible to your fellow humans as possible, as long as it's done in the name of hating the monster. And isn't that what you really wanted?
Let's just start this one. Toxic fandoms are a thing, and they always will be a thing. But this is where we get quite interesting. We're at a point with Rings of Power where the fan accounts are just getting intensely ridiculous. There's one that I won't name, but it exists, and oh god, they literally exist to ship Galadriel and Sauron together, which is kind of gross, because they've obviously not read the books. And by the way, I have no real issues with fan fiction, but please, these accounts that are ran by adults, that create wish fulfillment and their adult fantasies, I'm trying to avoid certain words in this one, are weird, and they always will be. They exist in this weird bubble. It's not particularly healthy, but they exist. And I've seen it with countless other franchises before, and this has been going on for a very long time, because they're living out their fantasies in written words, and they create these accounts on Tumblr and on Twitter where they are literally LARPing as the character, and I don't really understand that mindset. It's kind of gross. There is another account that's a Lord of the Rings, well, not Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power account, that literally went after a person and exposed their private information, made some horrendous comments about their dying father, and somehow that account is still up. So Twitter, can you fix this, please? But this has gone on for so long, and I do find it strange. It's like a psychological study. And what I've picked up on is that people are so desperate to have their adult fantasies, their identity as a human being validated by media that isn't really theirs. They're obsessed with it. They want to live out this fantasy. And there's one account, and the guy is obsessed with the actress that plays Galadriel. There's a few accounts, by the way. There is definitely a few of these accounts. This one, the guy is obviously neurodivergent in some form. Creepy as hell, but neurodivergent, and I hope he gets the help that he genuinely needs. You know, this kind of grown, middle-aged men who go on the internet, who create ghost accounts to stalk people, harass people that they don't know, jump into their mentions, jump into their tweets, and misrepresent the truth in a way that is kind of gross and could destroy people's lives, but that's what they want. They want to destroy people's lives and destroy people's platforms. And that's it. They have to win. And it is this, I've seen this, book fandoms, the Twilight fandom, for example, and the emotional maturity of the Rings of Power fandom is on that level. It's just, it seems so desperate, and it seems kind of sad because there's obviously bigger issues at play here. I look back at all of the stuff that's happening, and I've seen it over the last decades, but Twitter has ramped it up even more. It's kind of gross, and there is no way around it. Like, there are some people that genuinely don't need the internet. They need a good therapist. Stop using that word. Bad faith argument. You don't know what it means. Bad faith to you is anyone that doesn't necessarily agree with you from the outright get-go. And even coming after people that agree with you, but in a slightly different way, is also a major problem. I think one of the major issues with the Rings of Power fandom is that they're trying to shoehorn Rings of Power into the canon that is Lord of the Rings, and they're fundamentally different. The Amazon only have the rights to the appendices, basically, of the books and characters within the Lord of the Rings and a bit of the Hobbit. These characters are not representative of the Silmarillion. These characters are not representative of the Lost Tales, the Unfinished Tales, and so on. These characters are very much Amazon's own creation, and they've changed the history of Middle-earth to the point that Lord of the Rings can't happen. And no, Sauron will never be Arwen's grandfather, but that's a whole different discussion, and I do find it creepy when minors are making not safe for work artwork of this stuff. I do find that creepy, because that's borderline at this point. That's jailbait. Let's be real. But we've seen this behavior before. Look at it's very recent. Look at Disney Star Wars. Look at any Disney media. Look at any Stan account on Tumblr that's a relic of the 2000s. We've seen this behavior, and it is, my opinion, it is a desperation. It's this wish fulfillment. They want to fantasize, and that's fine. We all have our kinks, but my God, the jar of lube on your desk is probably getting a lot of use right now. I look at all of this, and I think this sort of war was not started by people that hated the Rings of Power. It was started by people that love the Rings of Power. They're the people that started chiming in. If you dare criticize it, you're this, you're that. To call anyone who doesn't like it a neo-1930s German man with a little moustache person, I'm trying to avoid these words because YouTube, it becomes this weird, obsessive, almost desperate plea to be recognized. And what makes me laugh is they go, oh, bad faith arguments on Rings of Power, and like, yeah, but you're doing exactly the same. You're doing actual bad faith arguments. I can criticize the Peter Jackson movies. I recognize their flaws, but at least they told the bloody story. Rings of Power is completely an invention of Amazon, and I talked about reshoots and possible changes that happened as it went on, but this weird toxic positivity, and that's also something else that I find strange. The book community is quite guilty of this as well. Any negative opinion is seen as attention seeking. It's not seen as something genuine. I would say the same stuff about the Rings of Power if it was a generic fantasy show. Poor writing, poor characterization. I would say the same stuff about the Disney sequels to Star Wars if they'd been made by George Lucas. That's the irony here. My opinion isn't to do with the company, and I hate the word. It's nothing to do with woke propaganda. But to call anyone who doesn't like your precious little show a neo, there is a problem, and the problem is you. And to go after people that they follow, that they interact with, that they talk to, is shocking behavior. To threaten people with doxing, it's over a bloody TV show. People don't like it. Grow some balls. Man up. I mean, and this I've seen so many times. And it's kind of sad to witness. It's this sort of free fall of desperate needing to feel like you're part of a community, to control the narrative, to have a space with people that the second you put a foot wrong, they're going to eat you alive. And that's also something else. They breed these cliques on the internet that are people that don't view you as a friend. They don't view you as anything other than that. They view you as a tool. They view you as a step up. And again, book community experience here. You're not viewed as a content creator. You're not viewed as a person. All of this is a war that fans of the books, fans of the Peter Jackson movies didn't start. Criticism of anything. You have the full right. Seth Rogen is a prime example of this. Oh, but if you criticize it, all the people that put hard work into it, it hurts them. So, you have the right to criticize the media you consume. You have the right to talk about it, good, bad, or otherwise. I will say, if you watch my Rings of Power videos, I do mention some positives. I do mention some positives here and there. And same with everything. I don't just dump on everything. I'm not some right-wing reactionary orderly beard model, by the way. By the way, I didn't get a cool nickname. I'm disappointed in that. This whole situation is repugnant. It's desperate. And the psychology behind it is fascinating. Because human psychology is a bit of a hobby of mine. What makes me laugh is they're like, well, they have ghost accounts. They're watching us. You're doing the same. No one's watching you, actually. That's the irony. Screenshots of tweets show up on private Facebook groups, on private Reddit feeds. There are loads of places these show up. Private Tumblrs, like, of all places, private Twitter accounts. We're not the ones watching you. And that's the sad irony. Few of the people watching you and laughing about you are people that you consider, air quotes, friends, which I find fascinating. And given you're so willing to destroy other people over a television show, when no one in my circle has threatened to dox anyone, it's childish, and pushing this narrative that you are the victim somehow is ridiculous as well. At the end of the day, middle-aged men interacting with teenagers and interacting with 13-year-olds not safe for work artwork on the internet is creepy, and it's actually creepy at this point. Yeah, that's my little rant over, but I will say, just to finish this video, I get it, we don't want to hear negative things about things that we love, but there is a line that people are crossing, and they do it all the time. The internet gives people the freedom to just be assholes, and unfortunately, it's true. I've never directly attacked anyone, but I will give my opinion, and my opinion is always criticism rather than, you're ugly. This is just absurd at this point, and it's like watching mean girls in a playground bitch about each other. But the sheer misrepresentation of facts by toxic fans of anything is deplorable at best. So, that's where we're going to leave this video. I will talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful day, and normal service will resume soon.